Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's September 21st, 2021, and today I thought I'd answer one of the questions about using weed mats and some of the life forms, the earthworms, just aren't underneath some of the weed mats and all. And this came about from a question that Tim from Tim's Homestead, and I'm playing a little bit of one of his YouTube videos, one of his more recent ones online on the computer screen behind me right now. So before I forget, I'll try to remember to put a link in the description below for Tim's YouTube channel. But if you search for Tim's Homestead on YouTube, he should be the first one that shows up. And certainly a shout out to Tim. Congratulations. Tim recently retired, so he's going to be able to spend more time working on his homestead. And he really has spent a great deal of time for years building a beautiful permaculture system. And he's been very interactive on our channel, so I really appreciate that. So, and he's doing some fantastic stuff. So Tim commented when I did my last garden update, and I'm behind on all my videos and responding to comments and questions. My back is taking longer than I'd hoped for it to heal and all. But Tim wrote everything's looking good. If he was closer, he'd buy some of our produce and fruit and all that we have. And one of the things he said, where is it? I'm going to try, he said, a few days ago I decided to stop using the weed fabric. Those are the weed mats that we use on our property. I'm going to try deep mulch, as in grass clippings and homemade compost. One thing I've noticed is that where I did mulch with grass, I had lots of worms in those beds. And where I had weed fabric, I found no worms. Have you noticed that with your beds with weed fabric? And yes, that's a really good observation, and that's really the first principle in permaculture is observation and interaction. And so when we observe something that we know that in our other beds there's plenty of earthworms there, that's telling you an awful lot about the presence of other microorganisms, the ecosystem, the microbial community in the beds. And I would say that's a keen observation. If we're using weed mats and we aren't providing the ecosystem, no matter whether we're using weed mats or not, if we don't have the ecosystem, the ecology, the microorganisms, the communities in the soil, then we're not going to see the earthworms in those areas. So if we're turning the beds a lot and plowing the area, disking the area, tilling, those sorts of things, we damage some of the structure, and therefore some of the habitat and the food resources aren't there. If we're keeping the weed mats on the beds all year round and not leaving the roots of the plants that we're growing in those beds still present in there, then the food resources that are necessary for the worms to feed on, such as earthworms, let's just use those because we can see them grossly with our eyes. So those earthworms tell us a lot about the soil. The earthworms are dependent on some decomposing materials such as roots. So that's why if you see with the beds that we do here, I try to cut the plants off right at the ground surface and leave all of the roots from the plants that we've been growing throughout the season in the ground, because those decomposing roots are a beautiful food source for the earthworms. The earthworms also eat the microscopic animals such as the fungal consuming and bacterial consuming nematodes. So that's a food source. The protozoans, the rotifers, the fungi themselves as well. So the food resources need to be there. So if you're living in a desert devoid of the food sources, then it isn't going to support the inhabitants that are going to be there. So that's that's why many people who are using weed mats in market gardening are always adding compost. They'll pull the weed mats back. and they'll prep the beds. A lot of them are doing minimal tilling or no tilling now, and using either turkey or chicken compost, something that's been composted, and putting that in, either on just on the surface of the bed or just gently mixing it into the surface of the bed. So that provides the microbial community and the food sources for like one season, pretty much maximally. But over time, like, well, in our videos in the past, we've done the large composting. I'm doing another small composting one now. I'm really cut back a lot on composting because of the persistent herbicides. So I have made a video about persistent herbicides in the past. I won't go into that, but they're present in much of the hay and straw that we purchase. And that can really hurt some plant species that we're growing in our gardens. So the composting I'm doing is thermophilic, so that helps to degrade things. If we're not using a thermophilic composting system, then we could be introducing weed seeds, pathogens, some of the root structures of some of the plants that are noxious weeds as well. So really getting those temperatures up to the right temperature to devitalize the rhizomes, the roots, the seeds, the pathogens, that's important. So one of the reasons we're going to cover crops is because we have the biomass below the surface of the soil, which all the root material is there, and that's to feed the microorganisms and those macroscopic worms as well, the earthworms. So they're left there as well. I hope to be able to get to the point where we can basically get our cover crops so the biomass that's above the surface of the soil, that gets incorporated as well. So and I'll do another video update today because I've gotten more beds planted with some mustard as well, mustard seed. So as these plants grow, before our hard winters come and I use the tarps, I'm going to try and lay that material down and cover it with tarps so that all of that can be a beautiful food source. So when I put the weed mats back over covering the surface, we have all of the food and nutrient resources there available for the microorganisms, which are going to feed the plants that we plant next spring. So I hope that all makes sense. But that is a very good observation. And it's not wrong. It certainly is right to do what you're doing, Tim. So Tim's planning on using grass clippings because he doesn't use any pesticides or anything or herbicides on his lawns. So using his grass clippings and doing his own composting. If you're doing composting, I do recommend using the thermophilic approach, really monitoring your temperatures, making sure that there's adequate oxygen, and I've gone through all of those topics in our large composting videos as well. So those are my thoughts and all. Tim's Homestead is a great YouTube channel. Again, it's like a one-man operation. He produces lots of food. He's very resourceful, and he's very good at sharing the information as well. So I do highly recommend going and visiting his channel if you enjoy our channel as well. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And by all means, folks, take care, stay safe, and think about next season, how you're going to raise your the food for yourself as well. Take care now. Bye-bye.